Hi guys, it's Ray. Today I'm just gonna do a couple of quick DIY alcohol inks. I mostly favor the Pinata and Tim Holtz Ranger alcohol inks, but I do on occasion make my own when I don't have a color I want handy. And I went to AC Moore yesterday to see what was left. They're going out of business, as you probably know, if you have one in your area. And they had these Artsy ink bottles in the store. I do have a couple of inks from this brand. I don't know, it was an odd brand that they carried that I've never seen anywhere else, but they worked really well. So, I know that I do like the shape of the bottle and all that. Plus, they had their brand of permanent marker clearance, of course. So, I decided to buy the last 12 of these they had in stock. I knew I had one left at home from a previous purchase. So, I went ahead and grabbed 13 different colors of marker to make up a batch of my own inks, because I do go through a lot of ink, and I have some really fun, cool projects with ink planned beyond my normal what I do with inks. So, these bottles, top comes off, dropper comes out, easy enough. I have most of them prepped and ready to go already. But I'm not going to mix in the bottles, and I'll explain why. I am going to mix in, and I already did this pink one. Nothing left in this marker. Not even the tip. So, I mix in a little measuring cup. These I order online from Allegro Medical. I get them for about $0.01 a piece. So, I always have stacks and stacks of them handy. I mix in the medicine cups so they can sit and do their thing. I will leave them until this is basically completely white. You're going to see me do these ones a little bit smaller. I only cut this one into thirds. Once these go completely white, the tip probably won't go completely white. But the felt part should go basically white, or at least that pale pink you're seeing on the ends. Once that's done, it'll be at its max saturation. But it is just the marker and about ½ ounce of the 91% isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to let them sit in the cups again until they're white, but probably at least 8 hours. And you can see already, I just did this one a couple minutes ago. You can already see how the color is coming out. You can see as it progresses from, this was the very first squiggle that you can barely see, up to now that it's been sitting a little bit longer. I do find homemade inks typically take a little bit longer to dry, and that the saturation's not usually as bright as a commercial ink. But they do work. This was just a piece of photo paper I had laying around because it has a glossy surface, and I'd be able to see how the ink looked. So I'm going to cover this one back up and let it continue to do its thing. I'm just covering the measuring cups with a little piece of Glad Press and Seal to get a good seal on it, to let them sit and not evaporate, because the alcohol will continue to evaporate. You know, just Glad Press and Seal from your kitchen, just something to cover it. You can use the little, like, salsa cups with tops, but they're way more expensive than these $0.01 a piece medicine cups I use. So that's that. Again, I'm going to use about a half an ounce. That'll give me the level of saturation I want. Anything more than that, it's going to dim it, dull it down far too much. So about half an ounce of alcohol in the cup. Grab a marker. I'm just going to use these little pliers because they're handy. Pull the tip right out and drop it in. This part can be a little tricky depending on the marker. You have to pull this out because the felt is in there. These ones are actually relatively easy. That one broke. The last one came out pretty clean. But once you can see the felt, I'm just going to grab a pair of scissors and chunk the felt up. Please do wear gloves while you're doing this because it does get messy. And then just cut it down into pieces. If you want, you can do this directly into the bottles if the felt and the tip isn't going to bother you being right inside there. I've done it before that way, but for this purpose, I'm going to keep them clean. And that's it. You no longer have a marker. You have a little half-ounce cup of ink in the making. You don't have to stir it up. It can just sit there and do its thing, but you can, if you want, give them a little press, which will push some of the ink out and let the alcohol seep in. You don't have to, though. Doesn't matter. But that will give you your color. So that one I will cover up. This is why you want to wear gloves. You don't have to wear nitrile gloves or anything fancy. Just your generic vinyl glove is fine. But I'm going to cover that up. And I'm going to let it set. Maybe I'll do one right in the bottle just so you can see how that works. I'll take one of these lavenders. If you get a bunch of color on any of your tools because you don't want your colors transferring to each other, just take a little scrap of paper towel, a little bit of the alcohol. Alcohol cleans alcohol, ink. So, but just make sure, you know, you're not going to transfer your color to color to color. You can even wipe your gloves down if you want, because you are going to be handling it a certain amount. Okay. So I'm going to do this one just a little bit backwards, just because it'll give me better control with that. Put the little nib for the tip one in. This is out. And I'm going to try and cut it down directly into the bottle. That's why I'm pouring the alcohol in last on this one, because it can get a little messier. It doesn't really matter how many pieces you cut it into. It'll just make a difference in how quick it soaks up the alcohol. I do want this to be about a half an ounce like the rest of them. So I am going to measure that. It doesn't really bother me if these are still in the bottle forever and always. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just not as pretty. These bottles will hold a little more than a half an ounce, but it's not necessary to fill them completely all of the way. Put your dropper part back in. Put the top back on. And that's that. This I didn't give a squeeze, so it'll probably take a little longer for the color to saturate. Lighter colors don't work as well anyways as the brighter colors do. So that's another one down. Try and keep my finished pens off to the side so I don't mix them up, because I already don't know what I did with the turquoise one. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. So I'm going to go back to the cups. Again, it doesn't matter if you pour the ink in first or the marker, whatever works for you. I'm going to do this navy. Check that, it looks pretty good. Sometimes they're stubborn, but they always do come out. And I am going to need to clean this after the navy. I have a feeling this color will saturate quite nicely. Okay. I'm going to grab my little rag and wipe that off, because I can see quite a bit of blue on the tool. If you want to do less cleaning, you can always go lightest to dark in the same color families. Then it's not going to be an obvious difference. But if I did the navy and then I go to the yellow, it's going to be a little green if I don't clean everything. So I'm going to add my alcohol. And I think this color is going to saturate super fast, just because it is so dark. But I mean, you can see how fast they do start to change. That's just a couple seconds soak. So I'm going to go ahead and cover that one up. I'm going to do another one right into here. I'm going to do one of the darker colors. I'm going to go ahead and do this green, just so you can see how a darker color might saturate faster in the bottle condition. If you do go directly into the bottles, you don't want to do too many small pieces, because you don't want them to get clogged up in the dropper part. You know, you don't have to mince these down. Just 3, 4, 5 pieces, no more than that. I'm going to measure though, because I don't want to oversaturate it again. I don't know where my ounce measure went on this cup. Right there. But that they're in, I'm going to put the dropper back on, put a cap back on. I mean, if you wanted to, you could fish these back out later, but there's really no need. And it would almost defeat the purpose of doing them this way. But you can see how much quicker that green is going to saturate. But the purple is starting to. It's actually turning really pretty. I'm pretty happy with that. These bottles do have a little bit wider a tip, more equivalent to, say, like the Pinata droppers than the Tim Holtz ones. But that'll work. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish these up. And if you have any questions about making your own inks or anything, let me know. Any permanent marker will work. You don't have to go spend a small fortune on Sharpies. Like I said, these were clearance. I've even used the Jot permanent markers from the Dollar Tree in the past. I needed a dark green at one point, and I didn't have a dark green. That's actually why I bought this set, because this was just a red, a green, and a blue. So I made my greens out of Jot markers one time. Also the Bic permanent markers, Sharpies, etc. So that's it. Give it a try. Don't use too much alcohol. Like, don't try and mix one marker with 2 ounces of alcohol. If you do one and you feel it's not saturated enough, you can always add a second marker to further saturate it. So good luck, and I will be showing these in action on some projects coming up soon. Thanks. Bye.